You, President? This is the greatest country in the world. We've got a whole system set up to keep people like you from ever becoming president. Quit your daydreaming, melonhead.
Ah, yes. Happy President's Day, America. It's too bad that Joe Biden's in the White House. And, you know, it's a presidential election year unlike any that we've seen since, 1860. But never mind that for now. Welcome to you this Monday morning, this holiday Monday morning. I'm hoping that the MAGA truckers will refuse to deliver their cargo to New York City after the Donald Trump lynching by the left-wing radicals in New York City. What a fraud this whole thing is. How much money is he supposed to pay, Michael? He's got to pay $355 million. $355 million, according to the left-wingers in New York. They're a banana republic. New York is a banana republic. And you better learn Spanish because the Venezuelan gangs run the city now. They've married up with MS-13, and you're going to have to pay more in taxes because they've got to take over. You see, there was a gathering in Harlem, and the citizens of Harlem, the tax-paying citizens of Harlem, they're not at all amused with the fact that the Democrats are taking over. What was that, a new high-end condo building that was built but never opened, and now they want to fill it with illegal aliens who are all gang members, all criminals. See, they're not all criminals, Chris. Oh, shut up. They're, listen, when the Venezuelan gangs are marrying up with the Salvadoran gangs in New York City because of their overwhelming numbers and their marauding, and it looks like a third world country, honestly, we should at least shut down the bridges and tunnels, not allow any deliveries in there, and let them sort it out. If it's like Snake Plissken in Escape from New York in New York City at this point. Honestly. Amazing stuff, and the media is very excited. Trump ordered to pay $355 million in New York civil fraud trial ruling. Now, this is great. These are the people that accused him, left-wing radicals, extremists. They believe that power is something to be abused. That's all there is to it. That's all that power is for. You secure power so you can abuse it and target your political enemies because that's what the left does everywhere in the world. Now, with that said, my friend came up with a good idea over the weekend. It's I think it's really a fun idea. If because the judge, the crooked judge, came up with this ridiculous scheme that Mar-a-Lago, one of the most historic estates in the United States of America, that Donald Trump's estate, Mar-a-Lago, was worth $18 million. The garage on the property is worth $18 million. The tennis courts alone would go for more than $18 million just for the dirt that the tennis courts sit on. The parking lot is worth probably $100 million. Amazing stuff. Rush Limbaugh's estate on the ocean there went for, what was it, $185 million, I think, to the grandson of L'Oreal or something like. He didn't earn his own money, of course. But I think Rush Limbaugh's, $155 million. I wouldn't want to overstate. I could end up in court in New York, if I overstated the value of somebody else's property. But it went for $155 million to a candy ass who inherited all his money from the L'Oreal family fortune, right? Isn't that right? And paid $155 million, and then he tore it down. So they got $155 million teardowns. And Rush Limbaugh's property, a wonderful property, was the whole property probably smaller than Donald Trump's parking lot. But this crooked judge, Engoron in New York, he valued President Trump's Mar-a-Lago property at $18 million. There are one-bedroom apartments in New York that go for $18 million. But never mind that. So they lied about the value of President Trump's properties. And President Trump said, "Are you kidding me? That property's worth $500 million." He said, "I could probably get $1 billion for it." And he probably could get $1 billion from somebody who's worth $200 billion. So again, one of the greatest states in the country. And the Democrats who secured power in New York so that they could abuse it against their political enemies, they found him guilty and said that he cannot do business in New York for 3 years. His sons have to pay, $4 million each, and they can't do business in New York for 2 years. They should literally just blow up all the Trump buildings, and they should drop them into the basements and leave the rubble there smoldering and leave New York on their private airliner. This is the third world. The left is the third world. We have a first world economy in the United States of America, but they're murdering that too. We have a third world Democrat Party, and they own the White House and the Senate, and the Lizard King in the Senate is a crook. So the radical leftists at Hypocrisy Now, suckling on the taxpayer teat. Democracy Now. New York court orders Trump to pay over $355 million for lying about value of businesses. Is about his real estate primary. And then the court started out by lying about the value of his real estate by absurdly lowballing it. The New York Supreme Court Justice, a New York Supreme Court Justice, has ordered Donald Trump to pay nearly $355 million in penalties, plus about $100 million in interest for illegally inflating the value of his assets in order to secure more favorable loans and insurance for his New York real estate empire. Now, there's not a bank in the country that says that Donald Trump artificially inflated the value of his properties. It was just Democrats that secured power in New York so that they could abuse it. Trump is also barred from running any business in New York for 3 years. What the Democrats don't want to make mandatory, they want to bar, they want to ban. Trump's two eldest sons face a 2-year ban and were each ordered to pay $4 million. Judge Arthur Engoron also said Judge Barbara Jones. They got Judge Barbara Jones will continue to act as independent monitor. That is corrupt. They should be in handcuffs of Trump's businesses and ordered an additional independent director of compliance at the Trump Organization. In his ruling, Judge Engoron criticized Trump and his sons, saying their complete lack of contrition and remorse borders on pathological. They have no reason to be contrite. They have no reason to feel remorse. They didn't mislead any bank, and there is no bank that said they were misled by the Trumps. The banks came in and said, no, we've given them loans because they have all these assets and they've paid back the loans on time, and we're happy with the business transactions that we've done. And Judge Engoron and the Attorney General in New York, Letitia James, who's a criminal, they don't care that there is no aggrieved party, that no one has lost money. They just want to lynch people from trees because the Democrat Party has a long history of lynching people from trees. The Attorney General, Letitia James, said Donald Trump may have offered the art of the deal, but he perfected the art of the steal. And here's the thing. Nobody says they were stolen from. There is nobody that filed charges or filed a complaint or feels they didn't get a fair shake from Donald Trump. There is no one that falls into that category. So this filthy Letitia James criminal who should be disbarred and probably go to prison for her lies, for her abuses of power. She said this long-running fraud was intentional, egregious, illegal. They just learned the word egregious last week. And he did all of this with the help of other defendants. The other defendants, sure. His 2 adult sons and senior executives at the Trump Organization. This is Putin's Russia. This woman is a criminal, and Judge Engoron is a criminal, and they should be disbarred and probably jailed for a long, long time. Amazing, amazing stuff. And this is kind of ironic because hypocrisy now, left-wing radicals suckling on the taxpayer teat. Just below that, the headline is, rights groups call for probe into Navalny's death in Russia. Russian police arrest hundreds of mourners. Well, wait a minute. You guys, the lefties here in the United States, are arresting their political enemies. And in Russia, the lefties are arresting their political enemies, throwing them into gulags where they die of sudden death syndrome, whatever that is. That's when they shoot you in the back of the head when you're not looking, sudden death syndrome, or they slip you polonium-210 in your soup and you die of toxicity of being poisoned. But never mind that. More than 400 people have been detained in Russia for publicly mourning the death of Alexei Navalny, who died in an Arctic penal colony. They like that term, penal colony. On Friday, at the age of 47, Navalny was Russia's most prominent critic of Vladimir Putin, really because Donald Trump is the most vocal critic of Joe Biden and of the Democrats. And look what's happening to him. We've got a Soviet justice system here in the United States because the left is here. How about that? Now, President Trump is going to appeal, but let me say this, because these criminals in New York, and they are criminals, the attorney general and the judge, they're crooks. These are very crooked people. What if Donald Trump put Mar-a-Lago, which the court valued at $18 million, what if they put Mar-a-Lago on the market and got an offer of $355 million? Would that automatically mean that Donald Trump is not guilty? And that the judge is guilty of being a criminal and lying and undervaluing? He's accusing Trump of overvaluing the property, which he didn't do, while he undervalues the property. And who's the criminal here? In order to convict a political enemy of the Democratic Party, they are going to fire on Fort Sumter one of these days. I am telling you. There are lots of stories about men dressed as women, too. And they're all Democrats because mental illness is normal in the Democratic Party now. Which kind of mental illness, Chris? Well, a lot of different kinds of mental illnesses. But let's go to President Trump. Let's go to some audio here, because President Trump was in Waterford Township in Michigan on Saturday, and he had a big rally, and people showed up, unlike Joe Biden events, even though Joe Biden got more votes than any president in the history of the country without ever campaigning or leaving his basement or having a functioning brain. But President Trump, Waterford Township, Michigan, on Saturday, and, he is the target of a left-wing, corrupt justice system which seeks to jail their political enemies just like Putin. I was, what is it? Minneapolis Has Fallen, the great documentary about George Floyd and the police officer that they jailed for following the police manual to a T and arresting this fentanyl-addled meth head, career felon, criminal, George Floyd, for his latest felony. That one was passing counterfeit money and then resisting arrest and all that stuff, right? And then the police officer, Derek Chauvin, was sent to prison. He became a political enemy of the left. And then he was stabbed 11 times in prison and darn near murdered. And the news media could care less. Our news media is as corrupt as the Democrat Party because it is an extension, an engorged appendage of the Democrat Party. Now, President Trump recognizes that we have a corrupt justice system. I recognize that we have a corrupt justice system. And I'm looking at the clock now, and I've got to hit pause here, but I got President Trump coming up for you from Michigan. Amazing. And as a result of this New York ruling, this corrupt ruling, we've got truckers in America that are saying that they will not deliver tractor trailers filled with food and things to New York City. I think we might have to starve them out. It's going to become like Stalingrad, cannibalism. During World War II, Stalingrad, the siege of Stalingrad, led to widespread cannibalism. I think New York may be on a path to become Stalingrad. We'll have to see. I've got President Trump coming up. Hey, it's Chris Plant, excited to tell you about our July 2024 Listener Sea Cruise. We'll be sailing around the British Isles, visiting Scotland and Ireland. Please join us. Visit ChrisPlantCruise.com. All right, let's go to President Trump. We had a nice caller call in and said, I think you're thinking about the siege of Leningrad, the 900-day siege of Leningrad, the Nazis and all. But the siege of Stalingrad was a humdinger and one for the books as well during World War II. And cannibalism became a thing, a matter of survival during the war against the socialist workers, the communists and the Socialist Workers' Party, communists in the Soviet Union, the Socialist Workers' Party in Germany. But that aside, let's go to President Trump. Waterford Township, Michigan, big gathering, airplane hangar, lots going on.
It's a horrible, horrible thing that's taking place. You talk about democracy. This is a real threat to democracy and restoring fair, equal, and impartial justice in America. We have to have that because we don't have that now. The decision yesterday in New York, you may have read about it. Crooked judge. He's a crooked judge. By a radical left-wing judge was a lawless and unconstitutional atrocity that sets fire to our laws like no one has ever seen in this country before. I was texting with friends at Newsmax about this on Friday, and Navalny died in Russia. And a nice woman, Carly, said, "What's your take on Navalny dying in the Russian prison?" And I said, well, it's his case is the model going forward for Donald Trump and the Democrats in the United States. They're not liberals, they're leftists. It's a sham case. There were no victims, no defaults, no damages, no complaints, no nothing. There was nothing.
That's absolutely right. Everything he said is true. There was no bank that complained, no lender complained, nobody had a grievance of any kind. The Democrats made it up. They abused their power. They should be in ankle shackles, leg shackles, handcuffs, chain around their waist. They should be dragged away, and they should certainly never practice law again. This is the left. These are not liberals. This is the left. It's a completely different ball of wax. And President Trump calling him out on it, he's completely 100% right calling him out on it. Crooked Judge Engoron, crooked State Attorney General. These people are, talk about your threat to democracy. They love to go around telling you that everybody's a threat to democracy. Again, it's the Russian playbook. Whatever they accuse you of, that's what they're doing at that moment. The real threat to democracy is the undemocratic party.
You got indicted more than Alphonse Capone, Scarface. They say, how do you take it? How do you do it? I say, it doesn't bother me. It's like I'm just doing something for some incredible people. It's called the American people.
Yes. Take it for the American people. How many times has he been indicted? More times than Al Capone. The left is here. These are not liberals. And they lie all the time about everything. It's just amazing. Now, I love these truckers driving the big rigs, 18-wheelers, And Chicago-based trucker organizing, and there is an effort online for truckers to say, you know what, I'm not delivering after this Donald Trump verdict, this ruling in New York City based on nothing, based on the biggest lie in at least 4 days that the Democrats have told. All right, maybe it was the biggest lie of that day. It was the biggest lie of Friday. But they lie so much, it's hard to keep up. Wait till you hear those Democrat congressmen lying about Ukraine. And with the death of Navalny and the Putin enemy in Russia in a gulag, now the media is saying, oh, now there's more pressure on the Republicans to move on Ukraine aid because we're killing so many Russians that we have to keep it up. It's good to kill. Kill, kill, kill. Faster, pussycat. Kill, kill. The Democrat Party is not a party of liberals at all. They are the left to the hilt. Now let's get to the trucker, because I love this guy. He's out of Chicago, and he's been on his, on the tour radio. Hey, good buddy, got your seat cover and all that stuff. 10-4, what's your 20? And he's talking to truckers, and they're saying, well, I'm not going to deliver. I'm not driving in New York City. New York City doesn't get stuff from trucks that I'm driving anymore.
I've been on the radio talking to drivers for about the last hour 15 minutes. And I'm talking to at least 10 drivers going the other way. I'm heading down from Southern Wisconsin. And they're going to start refusing loads in New York City starting on Monday. All right? I got about 3 drivers that I drive with. They already vibrated the boss and told them they ain't going to New York City.
Don't go to New York City. It's too dangerous. It's escape from New York. We should fill the tunnels with concrete. And they're like Hamas at this point. Honestly, The Independent is a newspaper. Truckers for Trump are refusing to drive to New York City after a $350 million fraud ruling. That's what the headline says. It's really $355 million plus $100 million. Plus you can't do business there. Plus the kids have to pay $4 million each because they didn't do anything wrong either. Boycott NYC was trending on X with more than 13,000 posts mentioning the term boycott NYC. That's for Democrats. That means New York City, NYC. So truck drivers who support former President Donald Trump have voiced that they won't be driving to New York City to underscore their disappointment with the civil fraud judgment where there was no jury, there was no plaintiff. It was a banana court. Fined Mr. Trump more than $350 million. On February 16th, Judge Arthur Engoron ruled that Mr. Trump and his 2 sons, Trump Organization associates, and Trump Properties were liable for tens of millions of dollars. But to whom? Who's the aggrieved party? There is no aggrieved party. Well, Mr. Trump and his companies and his trust were ordered to pay over $350 million plus interest. His sons were also ordered to pay roughly $4 million. That's each, by the way. Nobody can do journalism anymore. Many truck drivers across the country have seemingly taken issue with the ruling. A man known online as Chicago Ray posted a video on X following the decision, saying, and you just heard him there, I've been on the radio talking to drivers past hour, talked about 10 drivers. Drivers are going to stop. They're just going to now refuse loads that are going to New York City. And honestly, starve them out. Until cannibalism is normal in New York City, should just stop delivering anything to, middle America keeps New York City alive. Screw them. How about that? Amazing stuff. I think it would be a wonderful development. It'd be a great, they love boycotting everything and organizing everything. And we've always just acted like normal people and ignored them and let it roll off. But it's time to stop ignoring them and starve out New York City. Because, and I got to tell you, I haven't been to New York in several years now. But my best girl and I, we used to go to New York. We used to make it a regular thing going to New York. Now it's, a work-free drug zone where thieves and pimps run free and good men die like dogs. And I wouldn't send my worst enemy to New York. All right, I might send my worst enemy to New York, but that's about it. That's probably it. Yeah, so Chicago Ray on organizing the truckers' boycott of New York City. Don't bring him any stuff. And Chicago Ray.
I don't know how far across the country this is or how many truckers are going to start denying loans to going to New York City. But I'll tell you what, you around and find out. Okay? We're tired of you motherfuckers leftists with Trump. Okay? You know, is starting to get tired of this shit. And you know, our bosses ain't gonna care if we deny the loans. We'll just go somewhere else.
You fool around and fell in love, I think is what he's saying. Is that what he's saying? You kind of fool around. You fool around and fell in love. The truckers for Trump and refusing to drive New York City. It's making news all over the world. And the Hindustan Times is covering it. This is the stuff of the third world. The Democrat Party is the third world. They are here to destroy the United States of America as we know it. That's a fact, Jack. And they think they're doing it. They've made it hip. They've made it fashionable to be genocidal Jew haters. How did that happen? It's critical race theory. Apparently, the Jews are too white and the Palestinians are too brown. Therefore, they're oppressed. The Palestinians and the Jews are oppressors. This is critical race theory as being taught to American students all day today across America by the left. Remarkable stuff. Yes, sir. Your Democrat governor in the state of New York has been, because a lot of people are saying, you know, why would I do business in New York when this is what you lynch mob Klansmen do to normal people? And that's right, Trump is a normal person, a normal New York billionaire, global magnate, globally renowned for his business dealings long before he ever decided to dabble in politics. If he had just run as a Democrat, he wouldn't have had a single problem with any of them. They thought he was a Democrat all along. He hung out with Oprah and the Clintons, and, you know, they went to the same parties, the same place, and everybody posed for pictures. Everybody was happy. Then he said, I'm a Republican, and the KKK came galloping after him on horseback with ropes and pitchforks and torches, and they're trying to destroy him. And most of them are racists that are trying to destroy him, too. They're black, left-wing racists, and in Atlanta, for example, and you know, in New York too. They're these racists are all over the place. The Democrat Party started the first Civil War, and they're busy tearing the country apart now too. Here's left-wing Governor Kathy Hochul, because somebody told her, "Hey, business owners, big and small, are saying, why am I in New York? I should probably get out of New York City and bankrupt the place so that we can fill the tunnels with concrete and, you know, blow the bridges, and you guys can fend for yourselves like Escape from New York."
Law-abiding and rule-following New Yorkers who are business people have nothing to worry about, because they're very different than Donald Trump and his behavior.
But he didn't break any laws, and he didn't break any rules. He followed all the rules. Just ask the banks with whom he did business, because not a single bank complained. No one feels that Donald Trump did anything other than pay his bills on time and act in good faith as a model customer. They actually had bank executives come into the courtroom and speak on behalf of Donald Trump and what a great customer he's been, and how he always pays everything on time. Just amazing. And, you know, she should be sued for slander. And of course, he's got to sue everybody: the crooked Judge Engoron and the crooked Letitia James, the racist in New York, the state attorney general. They are a left-wing gang of criminals. They're a lynch mob. And they're just demolishing America as a recognizable country. Senator Ted Cruz having none of it, and talking about the breakdown in the rule of law in the United States of America entirely and exclusively because of what we call the Democratic Party, keeping in mind that the Democratic Party isn't. In fact, they should fairly and honestly be known as the anti-democratic party. They are anti-democratic. They are undemocratic. They are un-American. They are anti-capitalist. They are anti-rule of law. They are crooked. They are crooked as hell. Senator Ted Cruz.
Democrats have become radicalized, and they have decided that partisan politics matters more than the rule of law. They're willing to weaponize the Department of Justice. They're willing to utterly abuse government power to try to stay in power. The judge's decision in New York is an outrage. This was a partisan Democrat judge adjudicating on a case brought by a partisan Democrat attorney general.
And there was no complainant. There was no bank that came and said, hey, we just found out that Trump overvalued his properties and he tricked us into lending him lots of money. No bank said that. Nobody said that. But the crooked judge, Engoron, who sounds like a Turkish dictator, he said, well, you've overvalued your properties. And then he, just to prove that he's a criminal, like a Soviet-style Chinese communist criminal, said Mar-a-Lago is worth $18 million when really it's worth $500 million or much more than that. And I do think that if Donald Trump got an offer of $355 million on Mar-a-Lago, that would prove that he's innocent and the judge is guilty of crimes. And the judge, because he falsified court documents, lied to the courts, misrepresented reality to the courts, and the judge should be arrested at an airport and put in leg shackles and dragged away. Probably put a hood over his head, drag him away, chain around his waist. Now, there are so many crazy things going on in the world right now. You know, they had this Munich Security Conference, which used to be called the Verkunda Conference when I went there many years ago in my previous life. But an interesting thing happened at the Munich Security Conference. Lots of NATO nations, many of which do not pay their fair share and stick us with the bill. So the American middle class pays for their national security and their national defense, while they, get a month off every year and go to Greece on vacation because we're paying for their national security and for their defense. Well, screw them. The Dutch Prime Minister, however, who may be next in line to become the NATO General Secretary, according to multiple reports, the Dutch Prime Minister is a guy named Mark Rutte. Rutte. R-U-T-T-E. He's Rutte. And Mark Rutte, he had heard enough of these left-wing hacks who are European liberals at the Verkunda, the Munich Security Conference, complaining about Trump. And Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte told him, enough of your bleeping and moaning.
Stop moaning and whining and nagging about Trump. Mm-hmm. We do not spend more on defense or we ramp up ammunition production because Trump might come back. Mm-hmm. It's up to the Americans. I'm not an American. I cannot vote in the U.S. And we have to work with whoever is on the dance floor. So we have to do this because we want to do this, because it is in our interest.
Now, you remember that President Trump infuriated leftists because he told a joke at a rally. We played the clip for you last week of President Trump saying, if Russia, Russia's attacking a NATO ally and they haven't paid their bills and they're sticking us with the bill, I'm gonna tell Russia, go ahead and have your way with them. Now, he's being tongue-in-cheek because, and the crowd is laughing, they all get it, but the news media is too stupid and too corrupt to get it. He's telling a joke. And what he's saying to our NATO so-called allies is, you're committed by treaty to pay 2% of your gross domestic product into the common defense. If you're paying 0.7%, then, screw you. What kind of an arrangement is this? We're being abused every day.
One of the presidents of a big country stood up and said, well, sir, if we don't pay and we're attacked by Russia, will you protect us? I said, you didn't pay? You're delinquent? He said, yes, let's say that happened. No, I would not protect you. In fact, I would encourage them to do whatever the hell they want. You got to pay.
Let's say that happened. Let's say that happened. Right? Let's say that. So he's being tongue-in-cheek. He's telling a story. And what he's saying is, I'm going to pressure NATO countries to pay their fair damn share into the common defense. and what they are committed, by the way, by treaty to pay. And when they don't, the Democrats say, screw it, we'll have plumbers in Iowa pay for Switzerland's defense, and we just won't tell them about it. We'll just pretend that everything's fine while we're being ripped off. We pay much more than the 2% that we're committed to pay. And an awful lot of our NATO allies, I'm making quotation marks with my fingers, are sticking us with the bill and laughing at us, and then attacking Trump. Well, screw you. Let's get Trump back in the White House, and he'll tell you to pay your fair damn share. And if you don't, then guess what? All right, I want to go off on a rant here because this NATO thing has got me riled up, but let me go to a telephone call. I've got a whole lot more. And these lying Democrats, they're lying about the war in Ukraine. They lie about everything. I've got that coming up. I don't like liars. My mother raised me to not like liars, and it worked. Let's go to Alan, calling from Chicago, Illinois, listening on the great WLS. Alan, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
Good morning, Chris. Chris, May 8th, it'll be 79 years since VE. We are spending about 4% of GDP on defense. We talk about isolationism. There's about 130 military bases around the world. We're not isolated. We're just too committed. Europe spends less than 2% of its GDP on defense to deal with situations that are on its borders. And in the Red Sea, currently, we are basically defending the world trade, and much of Europe is not. Half of the money that Europe has given to Ukraine has gone as a loan. Why aren't we doing the same? Why don't we lend the money to Ukraine and Israel, let them pay us back? We've lent governments money in the past, World War I, World War II, and they didn't pay it back. But this time, Joe, let's make them pay their fair share.
Well, that's a novel idea, Alan, and that's what President Trump is talking about, and he does it with President Trump flourish. But he slipped in there, he's like, well, if this happened, the idea that our NATO allies, our so-called NATO allies, stick it to us every day when they get out of bed, year after year, and we just sit here and take it, I'm a little tired of that myself.